I cannot believe the Jazz are still on this streak. That's amazing. I mean, I can believe the
And
Bucks are still undefeated, but yeah.
it's really the Jazz more than anything is like I was reading some previews and like listening to some previews for the NBA. I was reading Zach Lowe's columns. One of my favorite NBA podcasts is the Dunker Spot with these Steve Jones. He's a former a G League coach, and Nikias Duncan, a young basketball writer, and obviously no one was prognosticating that like, oh yeah, the Jazz might be like pretty feisty, pretty like in the mix of a lot of these games. They actually just look like a good team, and I don't know how to process that because they are a team that is so transparently tanking.
Yeah.
They fire sold everybody off their team except for Mike Conley from what the structure was of the team before.
But that's the thing about tanking is you can set up a team to be tanking, but if the players decide, well, this is my life and my career and this is my legacy, and the coach decides the same thing, then you can't. There's no way to implement that unless you're like doing something that's going to get you sued.
And if these players, make a huge leap, and as of now, Lauri Markkanen is making that leap.
I always like Lauri Markkanen, maybe because of my Finnish bias. I know
he's the Finnish god, the Finnish hoops god.
I look out for fellow Finns. My grandmother was from Finland. She had a thick accent, and so like I've been there to visit my family and stuff. I care for that country, and like you would maybe with Iran, if there was like with why you would for Nazem Kadri.
Yeah, Ahmed Haddadi of the Memphis Grizzlies about 12 years ago did not make the same impact.
Right. And like when I watch hockey, it's like, okay, there's a lot of Finns. Like I love Capo Kakko.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh my God, yeah.
Because he's a Ranger and he's a second overall pick and I love him and he's the man and he's so sweet and humble. Anyway, this is not a weird thing. He's a little like a little lad. He feels like a little brother.
Yes, he's like a small lad.
He's so sweet. But regardless, like, it's rare to see a Finn in basketball. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, so rooting for Lauri Markkanen, and I just root for these kinds of teams that come out of nowhere, especially when it seems like the odds are stacked against them. And Colin Sexton was always a good player. Lauri Markkanen was always a good player.
Oh yeah,
like
I think both of them to a degree were kind of square pegs in a round hole, in the sense that on the Bulls, Lauri was kind of expected to just basically like spot up and not, and also he was never the focal point. I think that was like a hard thing for him to balance, and like it just never seemed as if those teams were able to fully figure out a complete role for him. And then Sexton unfortunately also had some mental health problems, and he needed to take a break from the sport, but that never, like you said, that never diminished the clear just raw talent he had. And also from an intangibles perspective, he is just like one of the most like fierce competitors, and he has been since high school. Like he is just an animal.
I wanted the Knicks to take him. I mean, that was the reason I got to know him in the draft process was because I was hoping that the Knicks would take him, and it seems like to be like I always still thought that he showed sparks when I was able to see him on the Cavs, but now it seems like he has a more defined role that fits what he brings to the floor. And
he's just fearless. Like when in one of the first few games when they played the Nuggets, there were probably 8 or 9 plays where he was just literally calling for ISO against Nikola Jokic, against a 7-foot, 2-time MVP, and being like, I'm going straight down this guy's throat and I'm daring him to stop me.
He came off the bench in that game, I think, too. And he had crazy. Yeah, from what I remember reading.
So it's a great story so far. And also, as you said, look at two very divergent paths. A Jazz team that was, by all accounts, looking to tank. Traded Donovan Mitchell, traded Rudy Gobert. Before that, traded Joe Ingles.
Rudy Gobert, who is now in health and safety protocol, goes to show that there's one league that still acknowledges that COVID exists.
Kicks people out for COVID or makes them
has
take
not
time
happened
off.
Yet in the NHL or NFL, from my understanding.
These guys could all have COVID and we would have no idea.
Yeah.
And but then compare that with the Lakers. The Lakers are 2-7.
Mm-hmm.
The Lakers are explicitly, transparently not supposed to be tanking. They are not built to be bad. The expectations were not for them to be bad, and they are playing terribly. And even with Westbrook coming off the bench, he's looking way better. It's not translating to victories.
No, well, that's the point. Is like we've said this from the start. The Lakers are a collection of players. They are not a team. And you're seeing a contrast into how like teams are constructed versus how players are are acquired. And someone wrote in Sam doesn't sweat since the Falklands. Marketing was always expected to spot up effectively on teams with zero space. You see what he's doing now that there's a modern NBA offense surrounding him.
No, that's a great point. It is a great point that basically they're like, oh, he's the tall guy that doesn't have to be in the post. We can basically leave him on the 3-point line and hope that he gets open and makes a 3 or 2.
Right.
Whereas now it's like he can do stuff that's not just that. He can be off ball. He can drive. He can attack a closeout because he's athletic. He's for a guy his size. He's light on his feet. So it's very. I'm super pleased to see him in an environment where he's thriving because I agree. I always thought he had talent. I always thought he would actually both on the Cavs and the Bulls. I thought he would deserved, I guess, a little bit more run than he got.
He reminded me like of, and maybe it's not just because he's like white, but a little bit like of a earlier in his career. I was like, he's a little poor man's Porzingis-y, but he's
Oh yeah.
I mean, Porzingis is playing well, but yeah, that's.
Porzingis, I think, is a little bit potentially more like explosive athleticism, but honestly, like I almost think Laurie might have a little bit more control or like polish on his game.
Seems like
now.
a smarter guy.
Yeah.
Porzingis is an idiot.
Yeah, he kind of seems like a dumbass.
And also a bad person.
Yeah, yes. No resentment from these Knicks fans over here.
I've heard some inside stories that I will not reveal.
That's for the Patreon.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
Eventually, whenever I feel like get around to it.